Welcome to Good to Great Schools Australia. I'm Shelley and I will be guiding you through this session on explicit vocabulary instruction with Anita Archer. Today you will learn how to explicitly teach new words. This is one of the most powerful ways we can improve vocabulary in the younger grades. In one of our earlier sessions, Anita Archer gave strategies for teaching new words. In this video, she models explicitly teaching using these strategies.
But if we look at, particularly up to grade 6, how students gain vocabulary, most of it is because someone explicitly told them the meaning of words. Thus, the most powerful way that we can improve vocabulary in the younger grades is to, teach words. And so we are going to look at what that might look like. There are words everywhere. And so you're teaching math or reading or science and social studies, you're teaching PE, you're teaching art. There is vocabulary, there are words. It isn't like we have to go out and get a whole separate vocabulary program because we have abundant vocabulary. In that culture class, vocabulary and daily activities. You have the children in their desk, and instead of saying, come up to the rug, you say, we're going to assemble on the rug. And so there is just abundant potential vocabulary. In fact, here is the problem. There is often more than working memory can handle. There's often more than working memory can handle. So most researchers in vocabulary today say that the most important act for teachers and curriculum writers is picking out the right vocabulary for students to use. That would be what is essential, is selecting the right words. So we're going to practice this. If you have a material like the direct instruction materials, they've already done that. But we have other materials where they haven't, or they have not been as helpful in their selections. So let's look at what we might look for if we were going to select vocabulary for explicit instruction. Now, the whole challenge with vocabulary is that we have to learn each word. And if we have limited cognitive working memory, then we have to limit the number of words. And so way back in the 1920s were some of the first studies on memory, working memory, and they found we could handle about 7 items at a time. It doesn't really matter your age or your intelligence, new information. And so when we pick vocabulary, we have to be conscious of that. And most researchers say, well, teach for this passage, for this portion of the chapter, for this short story, 3 to 10 words. But raise your hand if you happen to teach English, particularly in grade 6 and above. And some of your passages, you might find that there's 25 words that they might not know, true? And so, what are you going to do with the other 15? Well, those 10, you're going to teach explicitly. You are going to have them write the word in their log. You're going to come back and review them. You're going to have a quiz on them. They get the full treatment. And then the other 15 you think they need, as you come to it, you're going to tell them the meaning with no hope of eternal retention, but just exposure for comprehension in that material. And so some you're going to give the full treatment to, and some the light treatment to, so as not to overwhelm working memory.
How can teachers approach teaching vocabulary so they don't overwhelm working memory? Some things to consider so you don't overwhelm students' working memory are to select the right words, limit the number of words, teach some words explicitly, and other words, treat them with a light touch simply by telling students their meaning. Some teachers, particularly beginning teachers, struggle to know which words to teach their class. In the following video, Anita Archer demonstrates how to apply the 3-tier model of vocabulary development when selecting words to teach your class.
So how do you pick out the 10? First, you're going to pick words that are not known but are what, everyone? Unknown. One day I was teaching in a reading program, and in grade 4, the first word on the list they directed me to teach was the word secret. Is it possible some 4th graders have mastered secret? Yes or no? Yes, they've heard a secret, they have told a secret, they've betrayed a secret, they've mastered secret. Else skip it. And so I didn't give any energy to it. So first we're going to look for words that are unknown, and next we're going to look for words that are what, everyone? Critical. And so if it is informational text, determining the critical content or vocabulary words is pretty easy. Because if I am teaching a chapter about photosynthesis and cellular respiration, would I want them to know photosynthesis and cellular respiration? Yes or no, everyone? Yes. Okay? In narrative, it's a little more difficult because we have much more tolerance when we read a story of having words that we don't know the meaning of. Even for you as adults, you can often skip quite a few words and still get the essence of the plot. True? Yes. Which if you don't know some words in informative text, you won't get the gist. But there's, even in narrative, there's often words for which the plot hinges on. For example, one day I was working with a grade 3 class, and the word contagious was the crux of the whole plot. If you didn't know contagious, you would not be able to get that. So I had to teach that word. So we're looking for unknown words and words that are critical to the content. Another thing is that we're looking for words that they might hear in the future, say in the future, write in the future. Words that will actually empower them. Now, one of the researchers in this area that's very well known is Isabel Beck and Margaret McLuhan. And in a book that they wrote quite a while ago but have reiterated in more recent publications, they broke words into 3 groups. And you're probably familiar with these. And the first one was Tier 1 words that basically your children know. They know things such as chair and bed, happy. And if they don't, they already have in their first language the concept, and they'll gain it very rapidly. But the second group of words are words that would be ones that they might say often in an academic setting, and hear often in an academic setting, but might not have heard in their home. Words that they might use in many different classes, in many different domains. For example, the first word is what, everyone? Concentrate. I mean, the librarian might say, get a book and sit down and concentrate. The principal might come in and say, we're having our big national test tomorrow. Concentrate. And so they might hear that word in many places. I do believe that I've used absurd, particularly in the recent political election in the United States. I can't believe that it's a month away, and we will be so relieved. Maybe, if our candidate wins. Okay, and so these are words that we might really put some effort into because they are words that will generalize across different subject areas. Now there's another set, Tier 3, and these are words that are very rare words, and they are specific to a domain or a subject. For example, if I was teaching biomes in science, I better teach the first word, which is what, everyone? Hundreds. Okay? If I am teaching forms of government, that might lead me to introduce what? Totalitarian. if I am teaching, this is a review of the review. If I am teaching literary terms, I might introduce foreshadowing, okay? And so what researchers would say to us is that if we're elementary teachers or teachers of students with very low vocabulary, most of our instructional time should go to tier 2 words that will have generalizable use. These words have a purpose though, and it's background knowledge. And if I want them to do well in the next science class, I'd better teach them the vocabulary because that is what they will generalize to that class. So we're going to teach particularly words that will generalize. Finally, there are words that are more difficult to obtain than others. I'm always so interested in textbooks where they will say, here are 10 words, and teach them and give them all the same amount of time. It's really not true. Some words are obtained much more quickly than others. So do you think a word that has a reference that is concrete or abstract, think about it, which of those would be more difficult to learn? If what it's referring to is abstract or concrete, which one, everyone? Abstract, okay? Another thing that makes a difference is, does the word have a known synonym that they already know? For example, the word ubiquitous sounds difficult, right? But do children know everywhere? Yes or no? And so they quite rapidly learn ubiquitous because it's a new label for a known concept.
What are the guiding principles Anita gives for selecting vocabulary for explicit instruction? The guiding principles Anita Archer gives for selecting words for explicit instruction are: choose words that are unknown. Look for words that are critical to understanding the content. Words that students may need in the future. Words that generalize across other subject areas. And rare words that relate to the subject. In the next part of our session, Anita Archer will review word learning strategies and then give a strategy for helping students learn new words in a text by using context clues.
If we had children who had an unknown word and they needed to figure out the meaning of that word, they would first use the, what everyone, the context clues. Then they would use the parts of the word, and which is more powerful as assistants, prefixes or suffixes? Which one? Prefixes. And then they could look it up, and what source would be optimum, the dictionary or the glossary? Glossary. And then they could ask someone. So basically these simply add to it. But I want to make a point here. One thing that I often have people say in the upper grades is, well, we should just get kids to read a lot to improve their vocabulary. We shouldn't directly teach them any words. Well, that would assume that they learn all the words that as they are reading. But some very good studies done by Anderson and Nagy found that we only learn or retain about 5 to 15 words out of 100. So that's a small margin. We might want to couple it with explicit instruction. Now, notice how we're going to whip over the strategy for context clues. Read the sentence, read the surrounding sentence, look at the parts of the word, ask yourself what it might mean, try it out and see if it makes sense. So a strategy that we've all taught, though we might not have used this wording.
In the following segment, Anita Archer gives a strategy for teaching students compound words.
We could teach them a strategy for compound words. First twos, then one. Pick any word and teach it to your partner. And remember, for the meaning, you go to the second word and relate it to the first. Pick a word and teach it and go.
When teaching students compound words, the meaning can be derived from the meaning of the two smaller words. For this activity, choose one of the following compound words and teach it to your partner. The words are weekend, raincoat, network, or starfish. Let's take a look at how Anita Archer models teaching compound words.
Did this by saying we read it this way. What word, everyone? Day. And what word? Dream. And this is a dream that you have during the day. It's a rather simple strategy, but if you try to figure out the meaning going this way, it's much more difficult than that way. It doesn't work for all words. A butterfly is not a fly in the butter.
We're now going to listen as Anita Archer explains the importance of teaching common prefixes.
We want to be certain that children know the meaning of prefixes. And actually, just look at this. 58% of the words with the prefix are what prefixes, everyone? Un, re, in, and dis. So 58% we can teach with 4. 3 of them mean not. That leaves re again. So we should ensure that they know those.
The next strategy Anita Archer demonstrates is using moments of opportunity to teach Greek and Latin roots.
We can also teach Greek and Latin roots. And basically what I suggest, given the research on it, is simply to use moment of opportunity. So one day I was teaching hydroelectricity and I said, ooh, moment of opportunity, I'll teach hydro. And meaning water, and then I introduced other words. And I'll never forget this because we went to dehydration. The kids all knew what it meant, but they didn't recognize that hydro was right in the middle of it. And so I put in this little chart for you of the most common Greek and Latin roots so that you'd have them available to have some examples to teach.
In the next video, Anita Archer will model explicitly teaching vocabulary using the word family strategy.
But we're going to end up right here with this big idea. After you have taught a word, might you want to introduce the relatives? Yes or no, everyone? Yes. Okay? And it is useful if you can introduce it with a connected story. And so looking up here. In the farmlands of Australia in the past, they were able to predict the weather. In fact, their ability to make a prediction about the weather allowed them some consistency in their farming. And the weather was fairly, what everyone? Predictable. And because it was predictable, you'd say there was predictability. But things are changing around our globe. And now the weather in many parts of Australia have become a little unpredictable. And that, everyone, unpredictability is causing some havoc across our globe. And so I used a little connected story. Now, should you write it out beforehand? Not necessarily, but you should probably think about it for a moment. But can you see how this immediately expands their vocabulary? If you just added that one thing to your vocabulary instruction in every class, it would make a difference.
So Anita Archer has just modeled how it can be beneficial to explicitly teach a number of words from a word family. Teach the following word family to your partner: collect, collecting, collection, and collector. That brings our session to a close. Thank you for joining me, and I hope to see you in our next session, Instructional Routines for Teaching Vocabulary with Anita Archer.